sure to record this. So yeah, we're gonna just talk a few things about how the diagnostics are used, different areas on where you can add them in from a medical note standpoint and also from the patient's profile. So first, going into a patient, I'm gonna search my patient here and we'll just do this under Kira today. All right, now there's a few different ways to add diagnostic. You'll see under this history tab here, you're gonna see that there already are a few diagnostics that were added in here. So if ever you need to view any past, this is how you'd filter that out. You can actually click into that record and it'll show you the details here. But also you'll see the details in the summary and also where that diagnostic was entered if it was recorded under the medical note. You don't have to record a diagnostic under a medical note. You can do it by itself. And so that's what we're going to do here under history. Okay, so these are not changeable. These are actually already built in Vetter itself. And so that's the next topic I'll talk about, that if you had your own diagnostic that's not listed here, what I would recommend is you can add it as an inventory item. And then you can always add that into as a record as well and not have to charge that. So for example, if I want to click on color of gums, you're going to have the value here. So that's also already in Vetter as well, along with the other values for the other options that we have. Okay. So going back to, we'll add the color of gums and we'll just say they are pink. And then you can also make sure to change when it was actually taken and recorded. You can either click Save and Done, or if there is another one that you need to add, you would click Save and Add New. Okay, now once you click Save and Done, then you are finished with recording that to the patient's profile, and it'll stay on there as a record. I'll show you also how you can add that diagnostic to a medical note. I'm going to click New Record, select Medical Note, and today we'll just do a basic soap. You know what? I'm gonna make sure I'm in my demo account. Okay. So we're going to go to History and New Medical Note. All right, now here is where there's another option to add that diagnostic. You'll have your medical note here, this tab where you're going to type in your notes. And then under the records here, this is where you would add that in. Here is where you can view the diagnostics. So again, same thing. You'll have this drop down here. You're going to select and record what you need to and click Save and Done. So now that when you hover over into the records, you'll see that it's sitting here. Also, if you go back to Kira's profile, and you view the diagnostics here, you'll see now that this hyperlink is recorded with the medical note here. Okay. One other option under the medical note. Okay. There's also a diagnosis area. So if ever you need to use the diagnosis, this is already inputted in Vetter. However, you will need to add this in from the template first. So I can show you how to do that as well. Again, when you click Add Diagnosis, let's say I just typed in heart. You can see that there's already a catalog here that you can select from. Okay, these are, again, you are not able to edit these. These are already predetermined in Vetter. Okay, so I have my date in there. If it's something that you want to keep open, you can do that, or you can also have it closed. Again, save and done, or if you have another diagnosis you want to add, you would click Save and Add New. Okay, so now I have a diagnosis in my medical note that will also show up in the summary when you go back to your patient's profile. So I'm clicking back into Kira's name. I'm going to scroll down here under History, and you'll see now I have a diagnosis. All right, so when you're creating your medical note, in order to add that diagnosis area in, you're going to go into your Settings module. I'm going to click into my templates, new template, medical note, and then this is where, as you set up your program, you probably remember that you had to go through here to select which variables you wanted to add into your template. Okay, so we already have in Vetter, again, a list that's already here that you can add in. I'm just going to scroll down here just so you can see an idea of what some of these are if you haven't seen them before. Some of them already have the values that if you were to add the ear cytology to your medical note, okay, you can even have, again, just default text already in here. And that'll carry over into your medical note when you are with your patient. Okay, so you'll see that all of these are being selected right now in my medical note, which makes my medical note really long. So obviously, if you only need a few different diagnostics in there, you can just select from the one top item. You can even take out a few if you need to, and so on. Another option here is if you have to add in your own diagnostic, like I was saying, you can add it as an inventory item, or you can actually add it as its own custom field into your template as well. And so what I mean by that is a custom field is considered, you'll see here, blood glucose, blood pressure, color of gums. These are all custom fields. And so if we do not have a field in here of an option that you need to be added to one of your medical notes, you would go ahead and create that as a custom field. So again, I'm going to go to my settings module. I'm going to go to templates, new template. And then we're going to select our custom field here. All right, so I'm trying to think, we can create a diagnostic for, let's see, trying to think of one that's not in here. All right, we'll just create another one for blood pressure. Here is where you can enter those values. So if you do want that option of a drop down, for example, here is a drop down, you can add those values in. Then it's going to ask you where you want to include this custom field. You will always see these options here: subjective, objective, assessment, plan, diagnostic, holistic, and client communication, because those are the variables that we already have in Better. Okay, so you're always going to see that. It's going to ask you again where you want to add the blood pressure custom field to. So I've selected my subjective. Because you have a subcategory under subjective as well, which is history, you'll have that option to select. Same with objective. Once I select here, then I have different subcategories to select from. I'm going to click Save and Done. Okay, and this may take a minute if you have a number of values in here that are loading. Okay, well, it normally shouldn't take this long. That's interesting. Okay, there we go. All right, so sorry about that time lag there. So now we have a custom field in here. So you'll see there's a lot of custom fields that are already made. BP is right here. So now when you go to create a medical note, I'm going to refresh the screen and see if that is now sitting under my subjective. I'm sorry, my objective. And I had that under my respiratory. No, I'm sorry, I had it under my cardiovascular. And you'll see the blood pressure is right here. Again, if you want that drop down to have values, you'll just have to click enter under each one. So that's where you can add your own diagnostic here. Another option too, if you need more options with creating diagnostics, you can also use the letters, your templated letters. So let's see, I'm just going to pull up a random letter here as an example. So what you can do in any of the letters is you can have default text of your diagnostic in your letter. And what you can do is, if you have notes on that diagnostic, again, like I was mentioning, actually create the inventory item, and then you can create an action of a letter to enter to create an action for that letter to be created with that inventory item. Does anyone have questions about that portion? So that would basically, what I'm saying is, if you wanted to actually have a line item for that diagnosis, you can change the item to have do not print on invoice so it doesn't show on the client's profile. But then the difference is when you go to your patient's profile, it's going to pull up as a record. So there's just a few different workarounds that you can do. It just depends on how you'd like to view it in your program. Okay, so I'm going to leave the window up here, and if anyone has questions, you can unmute yourself, or also you can use the chat window if you have any questions.